Hi Jennifer, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for asking.
Okay, so this is our Religious Life Stories project with Jennifer Colvin. So Jennifer, could you please spell your last name?
My last name is spelled Colv as in Victor, IN.
Thank you. My name is Diana Wallace Bernstein, and the date is October 21st, 2012. Now, during the interview, when we're speaking about religion, spirituality, faith, way of life, is there any way that you would like me to refer to religion in regards to your life? Any particular terminology?
I am spiritual. I don't have a religion, denomination. I would just say I'm strictly spiritual.
Okay.
And that's it.
All right, so beginning with your religious background in childhood, could you tell me your earliest memory concerning religion? And it can be a specific moment. It can be something you remember seeing, hearing, smelling, something you were wearing.
My earliest, I will have to say I was raised Baptist. When I got saved, I was probably about 7 years old, and I didn't do it because everybody else did it. I was like, there really is something out there, and I could feel it, and because I became aware that there is good and evil. So I was like, so that means that there's God and a devil. So then I was like, I want to be with God. I want to be with good. So I got saved. And that's the earliest. And I'd say I was about 6 or 7. So.
And then where were you?
Like location, the church.
Right. Were you at a church?
Yeah. It was called Hopewell Baptist.
Okay.
And it's in Norcross.
Now, did it play a large role in your childhood?
Yes, it did. What my mom did, every Sunday we went to church, and since I am African American, we went to the long church services that lasted like 4 hours and went way into the afternoon. And then as we got older, when we were able to drive, when I got my license, so around maybe 16, she stopped taking us because she wanted to see if we could continue to go by ourselves and take on responsibility for ourselves, to see if she didn't want to force it upon us. So in all honesty, I was the only child that kept going by myself. My sister stopped going, she doesn't go now, and my brother stopped going and he doesn't go now. And I was the only one from like 16 up, and now I'm 21. I was the only one that kept going to church by myself, drove by myself, sat by myself, and so it played a large role and factor in that.
Wow. Now you said when you were 6 or 7, you were saved.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any particular, time that you remember around that? Was it an isolated event? Was it just a period of time?
Of me like becoming saved?
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Yes and no. It wasn't isolated. It was really big because I got baptized, and that was a really big event. And I got, an award for that, and I still have that one. But when I was 18, on Valentine's Day when I was 18, I got saved again. I didn't say I rededicated my life, but I realized that once I got to college and started studying everything that I'm studying now, more religions, I realized that I didn't fully understand what spirituality was. So I got saved again, and I didn't say I rededicated my life. I was like, before I just thought good and evil, yay. And now I started becoming religious and becoming spiritual, so I actually dedicated my life because I knew what I was doing. So there was a period of me just thinking the world was all la-di-da-di-da, and then I changed to really starting to understand it, really starting to understand what I was reading, and I started believing stuff versus just kind of believing it because other people told me it was right and wrong, and I forced myself to see it. I started feeling it for myself. So that, I would say, is the gap, actually about 12 years gap.
Are there any particular religious practices that you participated in? You know, like prayer, meditation?
I did. Prayer. I pray every time I eat. Every time I hear an ambulance, I pray that the person's okay. Same thing with a fire truck. If I see a car accident, I pray. I was in the choir, so I was very religious for that. Meditation, I just started when I got back from India, because I realized that Americans are kind of the only people that we don't have meditation as part of our daily life. We do yoga, but we don't meditate, so I just started meditating. Yeah, that would be about it. Those are the main things.
And during your time in India, did you practice meditation there?
I didn't. It's really interesting because that's a different subject. Okay, I was a Christian, really strong Christian before I went to India, and they were meditating under a Hindu concept, so I didn't feel right. I felt like I would be worshiping another god if I were to meditate under their prayers. So I didn't. But now I meditate. Now that I say I'm spiritual and not necessarily a Christian with a specific religion, and I see that there is just one God and one religion, I will meditate under their principles, under anybody's principles, upon coming back and looking at India, and my viewpoint has changed a little bit with spirituality. So now when I meditate, it is based on their concepts and things like that, and I practice their same rules. But when I was there, I was like, I don't know if I'm doing this wrong. Is this, blasphemy? Am I worshiping another god? Am I worshiping idols? What am I doing? Because they have a Buddha, and I'm like, So,
Now, you said one religion. What does that mean to you?
It's really funny, the way I describe religion is, the best metaphor I can use to explain it would be a car accident. And, let's say there's, a lady cooking in the kitchen looking out in the street. There's somebody mowing their grass. There's somebody skydiving, or there's somebody jogging, and somebody on a motorcycle, somebody on a bike. Let's say the car hits the bike. There is an accident. Okay, we already know that that's the fact, that there is an accident. However, everybody is at a different aspect and different viewpoint of the street. They see it all differently. Somebody saw it from a sky viewpoint. Somebody saw it, behind it if they were on a motorcycle. And somebody saw it from the kitchen, and somebody saw it, where they were cutting the grass. So each person is going to explain it differently from their point of view. So I look at religion saying everybody looks at it differently based on all their cultures and how they were raised, and the air that they live in, the temperature, because religion explains a lot of different things, yet we all make it seem like it's so divided because we experience it different, but it's all the same. The fact is that there is one God. There is, a heaven and a hell. There's an afterlife. We just all divided because we all view it differently. And it's not saying anyone is viewing it right or wrong. It's just saying we all saw it from a different aspect. So that's how I look at it now. So it's changed a little bit.
So for your family, you say you were brought up Baptist. And is that kind of the religious origin for your family?
Most everybody is Baptist, Southern Baptist.
Were there any influential religious figures, people in your childhood?
Hmm.
And this doesn't have to be, this could be a historical personality, this could be someone you actually knew or encountered.
Honestly, I would say my grandmother. She passed when I was like 6, around the time I got saved. And what made me really think that there was a heaven was that she died smiling. So I was like, whatever she saw last, that was the last muscle she used in her body. Like, it kind of made me realize that something came to bring her to her next, like, life form. So I was like, there must be something if she died smiling. I mean, I know some people die in agony and, don't die happily, but she did, and she was somebody I knew, and she was a spiritual person. So I was like, it's true. I mean, that's what I believed.
Now, as a child, do you have any recollections of meeting people from other religions?
Yes. Not just as a child, but all the way up through my adolescent. I went to a very diverse high school. Brookwood, it was in Gwinnett County, so it was a lot of Asians, a lot of Muslims, a lot of Indians, Pakistanians, a lot of people from Afghanistan. There was Caucasians, blacks, Mexicans. There was a lot of different people, let alone in my neighborhood. I lived on a street with almost nothing but Indians. Nothing but, like, and I always say that they're Indian, but they're really like Indian and Pakistani because there's a difference. And then a lot of Mexicans, which were more Catholic. And then I would be Baptist, and then, like, I guess I would say the black church and the white church, they do differ. And I did notice that, like, if I would go to one white church, its name was Calvary. And so, yeah, it was really diverse because there was different religions. And I did visit a lot of different churches. And up until recently, I did date somebody that was Jewish. And my best friend in high school and middle school, she was Jewish also. So I got to see that. I went to some of their synagogues and saw that I didn't, participate in anything and do any of their prayers. But I did go to a couple of Jewish churches, and dating a Jewish guy, that was a whole different look on his life and what he could and could not eat. And yeah, Jewish people are not necessarily Christians, but then they believe in God and a lot of the same things we do, but just not Jesus. So it was like, I saw a lot. So, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of different experiences.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
How did you identify yourself religiously as a child?
I called myself Baptist, a Christian. Yeah. So,
how did you feel about your religion as you moved out of childhood, began to get a little older?
Really, I kind of became more curious because, like what I explained earlier, it just kind of upset me that Christianity is kind of like, if you're not a Christian, you're going to hell. And that was really hard for me to grasp onto because my major is in international, like, business or studies. So I look at different cultures and I study different people, and I can't just accept the fact, like, you're going to hell because you don't believe what I believe. And that's really what started dividing it, is me getting to know other people. And yeah, basically that's it. It's like, we're not the best of the best society, America. We don't have the best history. And Christianity hasn't been the best religion, yet we try to make it seem like it's superior. And that's what really started hitting me, was when I started studying things. I started questioning a little bit more, why is this the only religion that is acceptable for getting into heaven? And that's when I really started, exploring, I guess you could use that word.
Now, when you were younger and you went to services with your friends and whatnot, with different religious backgrounds, how were there any different? How did you feel when you were at the in these different services? What kind of differences did you notice, or things that are the same?
Let's see. The main difference would be, Catholic was basically the same. They talked about Mary a lot more. Let's see. The Jewish synagogues were completely different. They had horns, and they had more symbols and more. It was kind of like structured differently. Like everything had a purpose. Like it stood for something. Mm-hmm. Like this represents this, and we have communion and stuff like that. But it's like they had literally like this part of this reading represents this day, and this represents this, and it was kind of like a little more historic, and it's like they kept it the whole way, like with the Torah and all that. It's like they have kept it a long way and haven't really deviated from it. Versus us, I feel like sometimes churches, the different pastors shape, what they're preaching for their own lives, and they try to get followers based on interpreting the Bible in their way. So that's the main difference I saw. Same thing as with Muslims and Hindu. They and also when I studied like Chinese religions like Confucian and different religions like that, they study things and they have mainly stayed the same. And that's why that's just my personal opinion. I think that they have stayed the same over years versus Christianity's changed a lot, and you can see how it's changed it's just changed with America, and that's just what I think. Some are the same and some are different, and Christianity is a different one to me. It changes a lot from church to church. So
now, as we move into your teenage years, think back to your religious views and beliefs as a teenager, how they could be different, or maybe the same.
So like now looking back on my teenage mm-hmm. years, they are different in the fact that I was a stronger Christian. Like I wasn't spiritual. Like I would look at like the practices that I do now, what I believe in now is like I would kind of believe in them, but I'll be like, maybe that's tapping into a different energy, or maybe that's tapping into something different. Like I wondered why other religions were like quote unquote wrong, but I still believe that they were wrong. Like I would be like, I wonder why they say that all Indians will go to hell for believing in, I don't know, Allah or something. But then I would still believe that Christianity was the only way. Jesus is the way. Like I would, debate with people about Jesus and this and that. And I actually did get people to get saved. Like my boyfriend, I got him to get saved. And looking back on that, I kind of wish I didn't push my religion on people so much before I knew everything myself. And I still don't know everything, but at the time I thought I was totally positive before I had explored anything else, and I have pushed it on other people. And now it's like, now that I've changed, it's kind of like I go back and I'm like, so you remember what I told you? Kind of look at it a little differently now, and don't necessarily think that Christianity is the only way, because I don't think that. And it's kind of hard going back and forth, and because I think my religion sways a little bit also, I guess. Like Christianity, I guess I sway a little bit too. So mm-hmm.
Can you remember a pivotal moment in your religious life from your teenage years?
I can, yeah. It's not going to be the best example, but it's the best one I can think of, and it's a good example. I used to smoke a lot of weed. I was like a pothead, like so bad. I'm only 21. I experienced a little bit. And I was hanging out at somebody's house, and we were like really high, and they were doing some other drugs, but I didn't do them or whatever. And they were playing with a gun because they were retarded and they thought that they were trap people. I don't know. They were stupid. And the gun went off, and it was pointed straight at me, but it missed me, and it blew up the computer next to me. But he was pretending that he was shooting everybody, and when he had pointed it at me, it was literally pointed at me, but it missed me. And at the time I was high, so I just laughed. I was like, oh my God, you almost shot me, ha ha ha. But then I started thinking about it, and I don't smoke anymore. And I started thinking about it. I was like, clearly it wasn't my time to go. Clearly that gun was pointed at me, and I kind of started thinking about it, and it made me kind of feel like a higher spiritual power was watching over me, like literally, because you see that on the news all the time, like people being accidentally shot because guns go off all the time if the lock is annoying. And that was when I really started feeling like, okay, my life is actually worth a little bit something, so there's something watching over me because it doesn't want me to die yet, because I'm apparently not done doing what I'm here to do. So that was, I think, a big turning point. And I would have to say it was around maybe 17, no, maybe 18, because I think I had graduated. I would say about 18, so it's about 3 years ago. So I think that was a big turning point, because it was scary, but at the time it wasn't, because I couldn't look at it yet. Now I can.
Yeah, did you find afterwards, did you attend church more? Did it kind of...
Yeah, it made me more, it did. It made me, I stopped clubbing a lot, and I started looking at life like more valuable, like every day really does count, and we really can die with the snap of a finger, and we just can't, take life for granted. And so it started making me get more serious about my life, so I can, I'm here for a reason. So it made me kind of be like, all right, look, I gotta stop playing games. And even though I am young people die too. So I got definitely more into religion in my life after that event. So yeah.
Now, tell me about some of the people from different religious backgrounds that you've encountered as a teen,
mm-hmm.
or that you did encounter as a teen.
Mm-hmm. I guess I could talk about let's see which one stands out the most. I guess the Jewish would stand out the most because I guess since it was closest to I guess since it was closest to Christianity, I hung out with them the most, because I felt like, Christianity, came out of Judaism, so I felt more comfortable with them. I didn't feel like I was, and we believe in the same God as they do, so I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong. So I would just say the Jewish people would be the example I could think of the most in my teens. And the only difference is that they ate differently, and they had more their holidays. Like they were I don't remember the names of them, but they would try to invite me to their houses for feast and things like that. They would fast. Their prayer services were a little differently, so I know sometimes they went to church on Saturday instead of Sunday, and that was about it. I mean, everybody was basically the same that I met. We just all believed in things differently, and we were all still friends. Like, I had a lot of diverse friends, and we wouldn't really let our religion get in the way of it. We still believed what we believed, and still would go to the movies and still chill. So we were like, whatever. So yeah, that's about it.
Now, during your teen years, how were you identifying yourself religiously?
I was still saying I was a Christian, but instead of saying I was Baptist, I would say non-denominational, because the different denominations within Christianity, I didn't really understand them. So I was like, why within Christianity does it break up so much? So I guess as I was moving on, I was pulling back a little bit more from a definite definition of what I was. I was kind of pulling back and saying, I'm not this exactly. I am a Christian, but not necessarily a specific type of Christian. And that's really what I would tell people. Not a specific type of Christian, just a Christian. And that's what I'd say when I was in my teens.
When did you kind of feel that deconstructing beginning?
That's a good question. I would have to say maybe this year, 2012. I would have to say that. And I really, really, really felt it the strongest when I got back from India. Like, extremely, religion just extremely is so different than I ever would have imagined my religion to be. Like, or not religion, because I don't have a religion, but I'm totally different than I would have ever pictured myself.
So how did you feel, so let's put it in those terms. How did you feel about yourself? Think about the day you took off for India. How, maybe describe your religious self.
I was, first off on the airplane, I was praying the whole time because I'm afraid of heights. So I was like, oh my goodness. And before, actually, I did an extra credit project for going to a Hindu temple, and I wrote this down on the project and everything, that I felt something when I was there. Like, I literally like almost ran out the temple because like I could feel the other like influences of the religion there. I wouldn't necessarily say I could feel the spirits, but I could feel the aura of the religion in the temple. And so keeping that in mind, when I was on the airplane, I was like, I don't think I'm going to go to any temples, because India is a very sacred land and it's very religious, and the people there, especially in Gujarat, are extremely, extremely, extremely religious. And I was like, you know, if I felt some type of way going into the religion here in Atlanta and the temple in Atlanta, when I'm actually on the sacred land in an actual temple for the people with nothing but their people surrounding it, I was like, I don't know if my spirituality can handle it. So I made a mental note that I wasn't going to go in the temple when I was in India. I wish I did. I do. I went up there and I looked into it, but I didn't go inside it.
Okay, so then you decided that before you left?
But before I left.
Okay.
Like, based on
and then
my
you
experience.
held to it.
Yes. Yeah. And I sat outside by myself when everybody else went in. I just sat there and observed, you know, the scenery and the people, you know, like I said, crawling up on their feet. Mm-hmm. Like, I looked at everybody going in and coming out and their sacrifices and offerings and stuff. And I watched, but I didn't go in, just based off what I experienced here from the same people of the religions in like Atlanta in America. I was like, I don't know about that. For the same reason, I don't want to offend my God for their God, even though there's one God. So technically, if I went back, I would go in, because they're okay. Yeah.
So on the next trip.
Yes, on the next trip, I will go in the temple, and because there is only one God. So yes.
And then now, you've been on your trip. You've had these experiences. Mm-hmm. Now, how do you see yourself identified religiously? How do you identify yourself religiously?
You know what? I would have to say, and I just thought of something actually, I would have to say I'm spiritual and not a specific religion. I cannot think of one that I feel like I have different religious viewpoints all compiled into one religion that is my own, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I read different ones, and I'm like, it's like I don't believe it because I read it. Now I believe it, and I find it, and I'm like, oh, this is the same thing that I feel. So there are other people that feel this way also. And it's like I go based off what I feel before I let anybody tell me what I'm supposed to feel. So that's how it's changed, and that's why I say it's more of a spirituality based instead of a religious based thing. And what I forgot to say was what also made me change a little bit into being more open before I went to India was I met somebody who was Rastafarian, and he believed that we were all equal in the world, like animals. He didn't eat meat. He was a vegetarian, as like they were in India, and he believed that he also didn't eat fruit that was pulled off of a tree. He would only eat it if it had already fallen because it had already died. And I looked at him like, man, you're retarded. I don't know why you believe that. I eat everything. Like, I eat this, and this. I eat chicken, and I kept going what I eat. And he had said, what's the difference between me and a tree? And he was like, a tree is life, and I'm life. I die, the tree eats me. I eat the tree, it gives me oxygen. I breathe out, and I give it this, and it gives it. We live with each other. We need each other to survive. So he was basically saying, how are we different? And when I started listening to what he believes and his religious viewpoints, because he was Rastafarian and that's an actual, religion, it kind of made me look at things a little differently also. And that was right before I went to India, because he worked at my last job. And like the job I worked at before I had went off to India, because I had to leave one of my jobs to go. And that made me, I kind of kept that in mind when I was there. And I was like, his concepts are kind of similar to you all, so that I had kept in mind also. So it's pretty cool.
That is. So I think we'll put so you can see really as you're talking, so, and I see really, not really the divide between adolescence and teenager or adult, but it's really, this divide is your trip.
It is. It really is.
Yeah. Like
literally, when I say I changed so much this summer, I really did. Like, that really changed my life. It, extraordinarily changed my life, because I feel like I was not sheltered, but I knew it was there. I don't see it in America, so I've never experienced it, so I didn't believe it. But going there and living with it and being not forced to see it, but kind of seeing it actually face to face, not on TV, was a really big difference. And I came back, and when I got back, it was like I compared India to America, not America to India. I was looking at the way Indians would view things, and I was like, okay, maybe I should look at it a little differently, because after I started looking at the way Indians would view stuff, I looked at the way other cultures would view things also. And that's why I started finding things that I believe within other cultures. And I'm like, dang, so I believe this from Chinese, and this from the Africans, and this from the Indians, and this from the Native Americans, and the Mexicans. Okay, so what do I believe? And I was like, okay, I'm not a religion. I'm a spiritual person. I can't claim anything anymore. So it really was the trip, definitely.
Now, have you noticed any times when you feel your spirituality was maybe more or less important to you?
I would have to say being in college, is more important to me, because I feel like, what do I like to do versus what do I need to do? And that has been really hard for me to figure out what I feel like I'm put on this earth to do, like like what my calling is, I guess you could say, versus what I just like to do, just having fun. And career-wise, I feel like that has a lot to do with it, because I need to get certain things accomplished. And I do want to help people get more spiritually based. And I don't necessarily think I could do that, I mean, I could, because I come in contact with people, but I feel like, do you get what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I need a career where I could help people doing that. Like if I had my own business or taught a class or spiritually based class versus working, I don't know, for Walmart or something. It would be different, because coming to people and trying to tell them about your life experience. Like if I just came up to any person in the street and was like, hey, I went to India, right? And this is what they believe. They're just going to look at me like, and that's why I wrote that down. They're going to look at me like, seriously, can you get away from me? Versus if I'm already in that setting, they're prepared. They're wanting to learn it. And I wanted to share this information with them. So I feel like that's when it matters the most to me, because I have to prepare myself to be in an area where I can get all the information out. In addition, I feel like in America, degrees and PhDs and things in front of your name determine a lot of if people believe you or not. I can't just walk around and say, like, I'm a student, but if I were to say, I have a PhD in religious this, like something else, they're going to take it as more of she knows what she's talking about versus just some person walking in the street just rambling about something. So that's why I have to make sure in school I set my foundations up right so I can keep going on the right path.
So now, since your trip, do you find, other than the meditation, that you're more comfortable with and whatnot now, do you find any other changes to your spirituality that you're now putting kind of into practice?
Yes, I've started going to different events. I go into a couple of Muslim events, and I actually looked into like different Buddhas, and I actually made my manager a Buddha bracelet today, with little Buddha heads on it. And I probably would have never done that before, because I would have said you need crosses instead of Buddha heads, but I actually did that for him. And when I was there in India, I don't know if this is going to answer a future question, but I think it will fit right here. They believed that, okay, I was sitting at the table eating breakfast. I had like corn and papaya and some other stuff. And he was just talking about his religious viewpoints. And he was saying that he still talks to his grandmother that has passed. And he had said that what happens is there's a connection that people share with each other. Also, like what the Rastafarian has said is we're all connected. He was saying that if a person passes and they have a spiritual connection with somebody, they can possess that person and you can talk to the dead person through that person's body. Like, kind of like I would say in the scary movies when the demon possesses somebody and they're like, but this would be as positive, like the person has passed and the person is a vessel for another spirit to get into them to still communicate with another like life area. And I just thought it was really interesting because I was sitting there and the girl from Italy was like, oh my gosh, you're making this up. And I was sitting there like, for real? And we were at the Arabian Sea, and they were saying that the Arabian Sea is like hunted or possessed, as we would say, but it's just where spirits go that haven't possessed anybody, and they walk up and down the streets, and they live there, and they actually get stuff from the well, and it's like their town is right there where the spirits are. And he will say that if you go there at nighttime, you can listen to them and you can hear them. And I just thought that was interesting, because here, if anybody talks about this lady possessed this other lady and I had a conversation with her, you would be crazy. We would not tolerate that in America. Versus there, that's normal, because his sister walked into the kitchen and she was like, oh yeah. And it was just like nothing to them. And I was staring at them like, so y'all really say y'all talk to dead people? And they're like, well, she's not really dead. She's just, in a different place. We just can't see her. And I'm like, well, how do you know you're talking to her? And they would say, things like, well, the people that they would possess wouldn't know the things that this person knew, because some memories are only you have, and some things, everybody has things that only they know. And this is what they practice, and they've been practicing it for a very long time. So then that's when I was like, so there must be some level of truth to that. If y'all talk about this on the ordinary, like it just is there. And when I took that home, not saying that I've practiced talking to like spirits or anything, but I've taken that into consideration, that there really, really is another dimension that maybe we can communicate with, the spirituality. And even in the Bible, they say that people spoke with angels, and in their dreams they were visited by angels. I just think now, in the society we live in, we're just so divided from our spiritual self, and I'm trying to really get back to that, because I'm like, I want to be more spiritual. So I think I've taken that home with me, and that's what I've started practicing more, is getting more and more spiritual as each day goes on, because that was off the wall and it was cool. It's kind of scary. I was like, okay, that's kind of freaky, like we're talking about possession, but they were happy about it, and they were looking at it in a positive light, versus us, we look at like paranormal activity and we turn it to negative. So
something to avoid.
And they embrace it because they like it, because they miss that person and they can still talk to them. Like, it kind of makes it seem like once somebody dies, they're never gone. They're still there. They're just in a different phase than we are. And we look at it as when somebody dies, bye, like, I'll never see them again. And you cry. And them is like, okay, I'll talk to you later. So it's different. It's kind of cool. So.
Now, have you met any people here since you came back who might have had different spiritual experiences?
When I said I started going to different like organizations and stuff, I'm starting to meet more people that are a little more open-minded, I guess. That kind of are more familiar with more religions and not just Christianity, that are kind of more, say that they're more spiritual versus them are more, they know what I'm talking about. And if I explain something to them, they can direct me better to specific text or where I can look at more information. Like, they're really, really, really wise in like spirituality. And I've started meeting more people like that, and they've helped me, and it's like a different spiritual journey. It's pretty cool. So I'm like, okay. I wouldn't say that they're like hippies or anything, but they're like really connected with the earth and connected with spirituality, I guess. So I've started meeting more people like that since I got back.
This time last year, could you have seen yourself where you are today?
I would say no and yes. I was changing, because this time last year, around Halloween last year, I know I didn't go trick-or-treating or go out to the club, or what I usually do, I dress up really, hoochie and stuff for Halloween, yay. I didn't, because I was like, I was kind of pulling back from the whole club lifestyle, and I was really trying to get more spiritual. So yeah, this time last year, I wouldn't necessarily see myself as this far, but I was starting to, I just remember that because I didn't do anything last Halloween at all. And I just hung out with my boyfriend at the time, and I wouldn't say I could see myself being this far, but I was going somewhere. I don't know where I'm going to be this time next year either, so who knows.
Now, these next questions have to do with your experiences as a part of Georgia State.
Mm-hmm.
So what is your strongest memory of spirituality associated with Georgia State?
Well, I have to be in Wesley's class because that class was pretty cool.
What class was that?
I'm gonna say the basic, just religious studies.
Okay.
Maybe the 1000 level.
Mm-hmm.
I could pull it up on my laptop, or okay. I want to say it was that one. And it was just cool, just looking at. That was my first religious studies class, a religious class I've ever taken before. So it was me, and then a gay guy who, of course, looked at religion a little differently, and then a Jewish girl. So all three of us were like helping each other out with religion, and I think that was the best at Georgia State because we were talking about it more freely in a school setting where sometimes you keep religion in school or you keep your religion out of your personal life sometimes. So I thought that was cool. I liked that class.
How do you see yourself as compared to other people at GSU in terms of spirituality?
See, Georgia State is so diverse. Honestly, compared to a lot of the African Americans on campus, I would see myself slightly a little more spiritual just because we are in Atlanta and a lot of people are very young. And I'm not saying that I'm old because I probably act like an old person sometimes, but I think a lot of people are trying to experience the college life, and with me, I feel like I kind of skipped over the college life and kind of matured a little bit by going to India. I matured a lot. So I wouldn't say I'm necessarily more spiritual than them because I don't really know. It's like I feel like I found myself a little faster than other people did, or I'm finding myself faster, finding more understandings and wanting to find stuff and wanting to be spiritual versus other people. I feel like nobody really in college really talks about religion that much. A couple people do if they're raised like that, if it's like in their household, like Muslims or Indians or people that actually wear the I forgot what those are called, we wear it on the head. Like, you can see people that practice their religion more sometimes versus other people, but I don't know. I couldn't really say. It's a big school.
It is.
Really big.
Has your time at GSU influenced your religious life, your spiritual life in any way?
A little bit, yeah. Because I wouldn't have been given the opportunity to go to India if it wasn't for Georgia State. So, I have to give shout outs to them for that. In addition to the religious studies class, I, probably, who knows if I would have taken that at another school. I think Georgia State has a lot of really good opportunities. So, yeah.
What helped you to decide to take the religious studies class?
That's another good question. I was interested in it. I was curious. Like I said, about this time last year, I was starting to be, I was tapping into something. I just wasn't there yet, and that was just kind of like, before, I feel like my mom would have told me, don't take a religious studies class, why would you want to look at other religions? But after she kind of let us do what we wanted to do, it was kind of like I felt more like I could do what I wanted to do, and I was curious. And I know a lot of people say, when you go to college, a lot of people lose their religion when they go off to school, but I don't think I really lost it. I feel like I got further along than I would have been. So I was interested. It looked cool. So I took it, and I liked it. Made an A+. Woo.
How do you feel about the spiritual and religious environment at GSU?
I don't feel it there. Maybe I could look for it. Like I said before, I feel like some people are more spiritual than others. Personally, I feel like for the sake of being at school, I wouldn't necessarily get that into it, because I feel like this is more of my personal life, and I go to school for my education, and that's probably why I'm not too familiar with the spirituality at Georgia State, because I haven't really I've looked outside of Georgia State and went to organizations outside of it to further myself. So, I mean, I believe it's there, and there are groups and stuff. There are prayer groups. I know there's a couple female prayer groups on campus, but I don't really attend them.
Okay. Can you think of any questions that I may have left out that would help with understanding your spiritual identity? Or just anything you'd like to add?
I think I touched on everything. Yeah, that's about it. I would actually like to see where I'll be at in a year from now, because I really feel like it's the beginning of something. And religion is so interesting. It's like, I kind of feel like it's deeper than some of us like to admit. Some of us just, we might go to church every now and then and, pray, but we don't really feel it. And it's just interesting seeing other cultures and some other people, not even saying people outside of America, people in America that can be so spiritual. And it's kind of like I want to be at that level, because when people know a lot about spirituality and religion, it's really cool. Like when they can talk about everything and just know everything, and I just think that's really amazing. That's about it.
Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Okay, so now we're just going to have some final demographic info, and I wanted to add that we are at Atlantic Station in Atlanta, Georgia, because I left that out from the beginning. So what is your occupation?
I am a student, and I work at a hotel.
And when and where were you born?
Born in Atlanta, Georgia, July 13th, 1991.
How would you describe your ethnicity?
That's funny. That's a good question. That's funny. I'm Black, or African American, or African, or Jamaican, or something. I can't exactly say what I am. 'Cause, yeah.
You're Jennifer.
That's what I am. I am Jennifer. Thank you. That's good.
What is your educational background?
I'm a junior. I have went through every stage of school. Got my high school diploma, graduated honors, on the dean's list at Georgia State. So I've been all the way up, elementary, middle, high, and college, and hopefully getting my master's in grad school.
What is your marital or partnership status?
Single. I'm single.
And do you have any children?
Nope. No kids.
And your current GSU affiliation?
Oh, a junior. Yeah.
And what would you say your current spiritual affiliation is?
There's one God, and we're all one, connected in this world. The big one.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.